Alright, so I'm in the beautiful state of Oregon, and right now I'm at Diamond Lake at the campground there. And then tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up in the wee hours of the night and attempt to climb the mountain peak I have dubbed Deerskull Peak. Alright, so it's about 5:50 a.m. and I'm just starting up the trail to Deerskull Peak. Alright, so I made it past the tree line and the views are starting to open up. Here we have Diamond Lake, and I was camped at the west hand side, that's the far side in this frame here, last night. Just a beautiful area, just covered in trees. Alright, so I passed a guy on the way up, and he did tell me that, thank goodness, there are rappel rings on the summit spire. So he did actually say that the terrain is actually fairly easy to negotiate. So I probably didn't need to bring the rope, but I'm going to take a look and see what I think. Because I bring the rope, I might as well use it. So I'm probably going to climb up and then wrap down. Alright, so I made it to the top of the scrambly section, and I'm getting ready to kind of gear up here. I got my climbing shoes, my harness, and my rope. And it looks like I got a little section left, which is the climbing section. I heard it's about 100 feet long. Cool. Looks like this is the summit of Deerskull Peak. Honestly, the climbing section was not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. And in my opinion, I think you could probably do it without a rope. But because I have a rope, I am going to use it. And I see some rappel slings right there. First, I'm going to enjoy a well-deserved drink of water. Now, I have seen some people on YouTube who've gone this way, which is obviously much steeper, but I mean, the view is just completely different. No comparison, it's a cooler route. I would never do that route, not without a rope. But yeah, just a gorgeous day. It's July 1st, 2022. And I'm just happy that I made the summit to this beautiful peak. I actually heard the peak gets struck by lightning all the time because of its shape. Hence, I recommend climbing it in the morning. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning right now. You know, the thing about these Cascade peaks is that the views are just a little more dramatic. In other words, you have more topographical prominence than you do on some of the Sierra peaks. Now, my heart is honestly always going to be in the Sierra peaks. I just love those peaks. But, you know, something different, you know? I mean, you can't beat that drop right there. I wonder if anyone's climbed this face. Alright, so I have to admit, this is one of the cooler peaks I've been to. It definitely has the prominence. It doesn't necessarily have the height that I would like, nor the difficulty, but I still think it is a worthwhile climb for people who like pointy, spire-like summits. just enough for this rappel. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna retrieve my rope, and before I do anything, I'm just gonna check both ends to make sure I have no knots. Now I like to put a figure 8 on the bottom and not an overhand on one side, because if you just put an overhand on one side, there is the possibility that you might accidentally pull that overhand through, in which case your rope will not be retrievable. In any case, just make sure your rope ends have no knots and go ahead and pull either one. And what's going to happen is that end is going to come up and it's going to slide through the rappel ring, and then I'm going to be able to pull down my rope so that I can retrieve it. I need to also mention that when you do this, you do need to leave behind something, and it is kind of a violation of the leave no trace principle by leaving a rappel ring. However, there are some instances where you just can't get around it. You just have to retrieve you just have to rappel down a certain section, and you have to leave something behind in order to rappel so that you can retrieve your rope like this. Off the record, there is a way that you can sling your rope around like a horn, but I would not recommend doing that because that will damage your rope and it will also potentially make your rope unretrievable. However, I have done that before in certain instances where I know for a fact that horn is rather smooth and I know my rope will be retrievable. However, you didn't hear that from me. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and put our rope back in our bag. I like to put it back in like an organized manner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end and I'm just going to go ahead and toss that end to the side. And I'm just going to go like this and run through the whole length of the rope like that, throwing the pile sort of, you know, stacking it right there. And this is just to make sure that the rope is going to be able to be managed well. Now obviously you want to do this before you rappel in particular, because what you don't want to have happen is a situation where you have a knot in your rope and then your rope will not permit you to rappel down its length, in which case you will not be able to get to the bottom of the area you're trying to get down from. I like to put a figure 8 like that. Now I've secured those ends, they're roughly parallel. Here's a look at Deerskull coming down. That's where I was a minute ago. All right, so I made it back to the trailhead, and my car is still standing, which is a good sign. All right, so we're gonna go over the map in a second here, but first I wanna talk a little bit about some of the gear and the techniques that I used in the video, specifically on the rappelling part, because I know that part is gonna get the most amount of comments and criticism. The thing about YouTube is it has the tendency to attract some of the bravest people in the world. So what we have right here is a single length sling or runner, and these single length slings measure approximately 23.5 inches long. Then you also have double length slings, which are twice that length and can be doubled up like so. I used these in the video to secure myself to a redundant anchor while I was setting up the rappel as I was close to the cliff, and also to test my rappel anchor. I want to talk a little bit about the act of setting up the rappel on the rappel anchor. So what I have here is a rope that I have attached to a simulated anchor on my ceiling. And what I want you to notice is the fact that the rope is attached at the midpoint and both strands are running down the cliff like so. You want to make sure you flake out your rope to make sure there are no knots in the rope, because it would be very unfortunate if you got halfway down your rappel and there was a knot that would prevent you from rappelling further. So what you will notice in the video is I've actually tied a figure-8 knot with both strands of the rope prior to throwing it over the cliff. Most people do not do it this way. Most people will actually tie a single overhand, like so, on one end and throw the whole mass of the rope over. There are two reasons why I don't do it this way. I used to when I first started learning, but the thing about this method is, number one, both strands are not together. So there is the possibility of one strand getting caught in a bush or something, or a crack, and then you have to then retrieve that strand. It's just easier if both strands are together. And then the other thing is, there is also the possibility of, after you reach the bottom of the cliff, you accidentally pull this strand through the rappel, and that strand will not go through your anchor, or it could get caught on part of the cliff face. So it's just easier if both strands are together, and also it eliminates the possibility of you accidentally pulling your rope through your anchor with a knot in it. There is also another piece of gear that I used, and that is this prusik loop here. And what I have here is a harness with an ATC belay device attached to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first attach the rope to my belay device by taking a strand, or both strands, and placing them in the belay device like so, pushing both strands through, and then attaching them to the belay device. Now I have both strands running through like this, and I want to emphasize, and this is really important, when you set up a rappel, you do want to make sure you attach something to back that rappel up. This is going to prevent you from falling if you let go of the rope for any reason. I like these pre-sewn prusik loops, and what you can do is you can attach a carabiner to your leg loop. I actually like to attach it this way. And then you attach the prusik loop like so. Now there are actually several different ways to do the backup, and I'm going to go over the one that I used in the video as well as another one. The most common one is the prusik hitch. I'm going to show you that one with a close-up, but the one that I used is the auto block, and that basically just wraps around the rope, and I'm going to show close-ups of these. Like so, and then attaches down here. So what this is going to do is it's going to prevent you from falling if you let go of the rope. And that will actually hold your body weight. So let me go ahead and show you a close-up of how to do this hitch as well as the prusik hitch. Alright, so what I have here is both strands of my rope are running through my belay device attached to my harness and coming out this end here, going down towards the cliff. I also have a carabiner attached to my leg loop, and on that carabiner I have attached a pre-sewn prusik loop. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to show you the auto block. This is the technique that I used in the video, and it's also the technique I used in the half dome video. So what you want to do is you want to start wrapping the rope around like this. It's very simple. In fact, it's almost impossible to tie incorrectly, as long as you have enough wraps. That's for friction. And then you attach it to the bottom like so, and that is basically all there is to the hitch. And this will actually support your weight if you let go of the rope. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to tie the prusik hitch. This is the hitch that I first learned when I first got into mountaineering, and then I subsequently learned the auto block and started using that hitch exclusively. There are a few instances where the prusik hitch comes in handy. But let me first show you the hitch, and it'll make more sense what the difference is after I'm done. So first you're going to have your pre-sewn loop, or your tied loop if you have one. We kind of call this the prusik. And then you're going to find your tag end here, like this. And you're going to find the other end, the non-tag end, here. You're going to take that non-tag end and you're going to pass it around both strands of the rope, and then take the other side and pass it through. Like that. And you're going to make this part, which I call the bar. And you're going to pull this tight, and what you have right now is known as a girth hitch, which by itself does not have very much stopping power at all. Then, as I add more and more wraps to this prusik, the hitch is going to become more and more secure. Each time I add another wrap, I'm going to be passing it through the middle and underneath the bar. So let me show you how that's going to work. So I'm going to take my tag end and I'm going to pass it through again, through the middle, underneath the bar, and pull it tight. Now with this particular hitch, you do need to make sure you are very neat, which is one of the reasons I don't like to use it, because it is so finicky. So now I have a 2-wrap prusik, and as you can see, as I pull on it, it actually holds my weight. I can actually take my tag end and pass it through again. Remember, neatness is really important in this hitch. Through the middle, underneath the bar, again, and now I have a 3-wrap prusik. You can always tell if you've tied your hitch correctly if it is nice and neat. And then as I pull down, it catches my weight. It also works the same way if I was to pull up. All right, so here's a look at the map of the area. And this right here is Diamond Lake. This is where I spent the night and camped on the west-hand side of the shore, and then drove a short distance in the morning down Highway 138 to the trailhead here, which is very clearly marked. As you start hiking, you move through a wooded section. Now I will say, in the morning, I encountered quite a few vampires in this area, aka mosquitoes. So you might want to consider bringing a net with you. And then I moved up this trail here. It's a fairly gradual climb up until you get to right about here. And you will see a trail junction which is not marked, but it is fairly obvious that you move up this section here as you gain this mountain peak. There are kind of two general ways to summit the spire. The first one is on the Arete side, that would be on the west. That is the more difficult side. And then there's the side that I went up, which is on the east-hand side. It is also conceivable that you could approach this hike from the north, but that would be a longer approach. Most people will simply do it as a day hike. And then I just went back the same way I came and went back to my car and got back around 2 o'clock. Then I drove south to check out Crater Lake. And I'll show you a few videos and a few pictures of Crater Lake, which is a gorgeous lake which I highly recommend you visit. Not a lot of people have been there because it is pretty far away from everything, but the color is out of this world. All right, so right now I'm at 42 degrees, 57 minutes north, 122 degrees, 10 minutes west. And I'm looking off in the distance here towards the northeast, where we can see Deerskull Peak. And let me go ahead and show you a more closer view and show you some of the surroundings here. All right, here we have a look at Deerskull Peak. And then panning this way, we have Diamond Lake. And then in the background there, that's Diamond Peak. And then directly to its west is Mount Bailey.